A lady named Triss decodes a message from the founders of her city, telling everyone to go beyond the walls surrounding them to meet the other people left in the world. Because it could destroy the faction system in the city, a leader named Jeanine decides to kill Triss. However, before she can, the leader of the factionless group, Evelyn, invades the city and kills Jeanine to take over power. A few hours later, Evelyn decides to lock the gate to the walls to stop anyone from leaving.
Evelyn's orders! The gate is now closed!
Triss and her boyfriend, Four, can't believe this because it's what they think Jeanine would have done. Despite this, Four says he'll try to talk to his mom, Evelyn, to see if she can change her mind. Later on, while heading to City's Hall for the trial of the people who worked for Jeanine, Triss walks with her friends, Tori and Christina. When they get there, the leader of the Amity faction, Johanna, tells Triss that she should now see herself as a leader, but she says she's not interested. However, Johanna mentions that true leaders don't choose themselves.
You should be up there with all the other leaders of the city.
Following this, one of Jeanine's trusted soldiers, Max, is brought forward for trial. As the crowd suggests for him to be killed, Evelyn looks confused, but Johanna tells her to avoid turning the trial into an execution. Despite this, Evelyn decides to please the crowd, so she approves Max's execution. This gets Johanna angry, and she leaves, saying she'll not be part of Evelyn's regime. Four also expresses his disappointment at what his mom did, and as she follows him, she explains that she's just trying to do what's right. Four then mentions that she's ruling like Jeanine, but she disagrees and says that leaders sometimes have to make tough choices.
I'm not going to tell Triss what to do.
Well, you need to try.
Following this, Four meets Triss, and they both lament about how Evelyn is currently leading the factionless society. As Triss mentions that she'd still like to go outside the wall to see what's there, Four tries to convince her otherwise. However, she says she won't be happy with herself if she doesn't try. Just then, Four reminds Triss about her brother's upcoming trial, but she says she doesn't owe him anything. Later that day, though, Four helps Triss's brother, Caleb, escape so that they can head for the city's walls. One of the guards sees this and looks suspicious, so he decides to report to the leader of Evelyn's guards, Edgar.
Oh, yeah.
Tobias Eaton took Caleb Pryor out of his cage.
Meanwhile, Peter gets Triss and Four to let him come with them, and after a while, Tori and Christina also join them. To get past the gates, they lie about having permission to go through, and the guards there believe them. Before they go too far, Edgar realizes that they're leaving, so he rounds up his soldiers to go after them. Luckily, Triss and the others get to the wall and start climbing, as they realize that the metal fence at the top has been rigged to electrocute anyone who tries leaving. Triss goes back down to plant a bomb on the transformer. Edgar and his men almost reach her, but with Four's help, she climbs the wall quickly and sets off the bomb to destroy one of the patrol vehicles. As Triss and the others finally reach the top, they look surprised to see the wasteland beyond the wall, though they remain excited to see what they can find. Before they can leave, Edgar shoots at them and kills Tori. Triss is left devastated by this, but since Edgar is already planning to get through the wall, Four tells her that they have to leave. Following this, they walk around the wasteland, which has some radioactive chemicals on the floor. They eventually have to find somewhere to hide as the rain starts, and there, Christina starts to doubt the possibility of finding anyone outside the wall. However, Triss says she's hopeful that they'll find someone soon. After a while, they continue their journey.
You guys hear that?
It's an engine.
But Edgar suddenly shows up in his truck, still trying to kill them. Four and Triss immediately run with the others to stop him from getting to them, and as they move forward, they suddenly get beyond a camouflage wall where some soldiers are already waiting for them. They look surprised by this, but the leader of the soldiers tells them to remain calm, after which he uses his advanced weapons to blast Edgar far from the wall. The soldiers then use some plasma globes to shield Triss and the others from the toxicity in the area before taking them to a place called the Bureau of Genetic Welfare. When they arrive, a guy named Matthew leads them into different decontamination chambers so they can be clear of the toxicity from the wasteland. They are then given tags on their hands before being released to meet each other again. Following their decontamination, they watch a video where they learn that the world got destroyed when people started editing their genes to be perfect. They also discover that the Bureau was formed by a group of people who still have pure genes.
Means you are now the guardians of the future.
Just then, Matthew comes over to take them to where they'll be staying. On the way, they see some kids who look really happy to see them, and as Triss asks how the kids know them, Matthew mentions that they've been watching everything happening inside the wall. Shortly after, Matthew tells Triss that the director of the bureau wants to see her. She asks if 4 can come along, but Matthew says the director only wants to see her. Following this, Matthew gets Triss to use her tag to unlock the pod that will take them to meet the director, whose name is David. On the way, Triss looks at the wasteland and says she didn't think the world was so big. Matthew then mentions that the city inside the wall is Chicago, and it's only one of the major cities that used to exist. Shortly after, they arrive at David's office, and he looks very happy to see Triss, as he mentions that he has been watching her since she was little. He also adds that he admires how well she did against Jeanine. Just then, he mentions that even though things might not be going well in Chicago, he doesn't want her to be bothered because they have work to do in order to fix a category of people who are damaged. Triss asks what he means, and he says that the gene editing caused problems that damaged some people's pure genes. He then says that out of everyone from the Chicago experiment, only Triss managed to heal herself and become pure. As he also mentions that Caleb, 4, and the others are damaged, Triss looks shocked. She then asks how she can be useful, and David says he needs to take her to meet a special council in a place called Providence to show that his experiment can make people pure.
You're genetically pure.
Triss still has her doubts, so David tells her that her mom was in support of his project. As he shows her the core memories of her mom, Triss sees that her mom once used to live in the wastelands until she was rescued by the Bureau. After she then got older, she decided to volunteer for the Chicago experiment so she could help people. With this, Triss believes she could actually be of help to the Bureau. Later that day, when she meets 4, Triss tells him about what her mom did, but he still looks worried because he doesn't trust the Bureau. However, Triss says she trusts that her mom did the right thing, so she'll follow in her footsteps. The next day, as Triss prepares to leave for another meeting with David, 4 tries to unlock the pod with his tag, but it doesn't work. He then realizes that only Triss's tag can unlock it. This gets him uncomfortable, but he pretends to be okay with the situation. After Triss leaves, a lady named Nita appears before 4 and says she'll be in charge of his military training. Christina also gets her trainer, as they'll both be part of the Bureau's military. After a while, 4 starts using the advanced weapons he's given, and as he appears to learn quickly, Nita looks quite impressed. Elsewhere, Caleb and Peter are assigned to the surveillance departments so they can keep tabs on what's happening in Chicago. Peter is not really a fan because the job involves a lot of sitting down, but there's nothing else he can do. Meanwhile, Caleb seems to like the job, and as he starts watching Chicago, he sees that he can even walk around, though no one will see him. Later that day, Triss meets David and asks why the council is not currently interfering in Chicago to prevent a war. He says they eventually will, and that everything happening in Chicago is entirely up to them. He also mentions that when he speaks before the council, he'll ask for their intervention. Meanwhile, Caleb watches Evelyn taking Edgar and her soldiers toward Johanna, Uriah, and some of the other Dauntless soldiers. Evelyn asks for Johanna's loyalty to maintain peace, but she refuses, saying the faction system is now dead and that she and her people now belong to a group called Allegiants. As she also threatens to go to war if she has to, Edgar kills one of the Allegiants, forcing the others to run as a war begins. Caleb immediately reports this to 4, and while they're talking, Triss sees them. Caleb eventually leaves, and 4 tells her about what's happening in Chicago. He asks if David can intervene, but Triss says that only the council can do something about it. 4 doesn't seem to get this, and as he expresses his doubts about what the Bureau is really doing, Triss defends them. 4 then asks when she was prepared to tell him that he's damaged, but Triss says she didn't think it mattered. 4 doesn't like this, and as they argue, Matthew comes over to get Triss so she can leave for another meeting with David. Just then, 4 goes to Nita and tells her that he wants to be part of her team when she leaves for a raid in the part of the wasteland called the Fringe. After a while, Triss meets David, and he tells her that he's sorry for any issues he might have caused between her and 4. However, Triss says they're fine. During the raid on the Fringe, 4 realizes that David's soldiers are stealing children and killing their parents. Christina also shows 4 that the kids have gotten their memories wiped. 4 confronts Nita about this, and she says it's all under David's commands to steal kids from the Fringe and wipe their memories with amnesia gas so they can be raised by the Bureau.
We're stealing them.
This is what we do.
This gets him really angry, and later that day, when they return to the bureau, he goes to meet Caleb to see what's currently happening in Chicago. As he sees that Johanna is rounding up her soldiers to take the fight to Evelyn, Four says he must tell Triss. Even though Nita tries to stop him, Four forces one of David's workers to open the pod so he can go to the office. When he gets there, he sees Triss alone and tells her that David is not who she thinks he is. Just then, David and his soldiers enter the room, and Four accuses him of killing parents in the fringe to steal their kids. However, David says it was just an unfortunate accident. Four tells Triss that they have to go to Chicago, but she refuses, saying she's going to Providence with David so they can speak to the council. He looks disappointed, but as they leave, David's soldiers offer to take him to Chicago. On their way, Matthew secretly tells Four that only David's ship can go through the camouflage wall. As he realizes that they're not taking him to Chicago, Four fights the soldiers, and Matthew also helps. Their ship eventually crashes, but Four and Matthew survive. Four then tells Matthew that he's going to Chicago to warn Evelyn that Johanna is not the enemy. He also mentions that Matthew must inform Triss of his whereabouts. Before he leaves, Matthew gives him an ID to help him gain access to go through the camo wall. As he then goes through, Four looks badly injured and weak, so he stops for a while to rest. Elsewhere, David and Triss arrive in Providence to meet the council. During the meeting, David pitches his idea about replicating Triss's gene in the damaged people, but the council is not impressed. Triss then tries to convince them while also saying they need to intervene in the crisis happening in Chicago. However, the council mentions that only David has full control over Chicago. Triss realizes that he lied to her, and on their way back to the bureau, she accuses him of betraying her trust. David then says he's already trying to fix Chicago by restoring the faction system. Triss doesn't like his plan, but there's nothing she can do. When they arrive at the bureau, Matthew tells David that Four has already escaped.
Four left me behind.
He then secretly tells Triss that Four is already in Chicago. Following this, she goes to find Peter to help her locate Four through the surveillance system, but she doesn't find him, so she has to tell Caleb to help her. Caleb agrees to help, and she tells him not to tell anyone. Meanwhile, David calls Peter and offers him any position he wants as long as he helps him do something in Chicago. Peter happily accepts, and David sends him to Chicago to tell Evelyn that he has a way for her to win the war. Meanwhile, Caleb tells Triss that she has found Four. He also adds that there's something else he'd like her to see. Just then, he shows her that Four has been captured by Evelyn's soldiers. As they're watching, they also see Peter advising Evelyn to release amnesia gas into the city, saying it's David's plan to help her. He also tells her to test it out, and as she uses a portion of it on her abusive ex-husband, she realizes that he can no longer remember anything. Despite seeing how it works, Evelyn says she'll only use it as a last resort. She then goes to meet Four, who tells her to stop the war. However, Evelyn says she can't.
I can't. I have responsibilities.
As she leaves, Edgar tells Four that Evelyn will soon have to use the amnesia gas on everyone in the city. Four can't believe this, and he fights Edgar and the other soldiers, but they eventually beat him up. Triss sees this and tells Caleb that it's time to return home. She then goes on to accuse David of trying to wipe out the memories of everyone in Chicago. He says they deserve it because they're damaged, but Triss disagrees. She then steals his ship, but he quickly tells his guards to stop her. Meanwhile, just as Triss is leaving with Caleb and Christina, Nita gives them guns, saying that not everyone in the bureau supports David. With this, they head to Chicago, and even though David's soldiers try to shoot them down, they fail to do so before Triss flies through the camo wall. Elsewhere, Johanna's soldiers have already launched their attack, so Peter reminds Evelyn to use the amnesia gas. Just then, Triss arrives in Chicago and takes Christina with her to find Four, while Caleb stays back to help them find the best way to stop the gas release. After a while, Triss and Christina fight their way through the building until they find Four. Triss then says sorry for not listening to him, but he says she only did what she thought was right. Following this, they leave to find Evelyn, who has initiated the gas release. As they eventually get to her, Four takes out Edgar and tells his mom to stop the gas release because it would wipe the memories of everyone in the city. Triss also confirms this, saying that whatever she was told is a lie. Since this means 4 will be affected, Evelyn decides to stop it, but Peter shoots her inside the vault with the controls, after which he then proceeds to release the gas into the city. As everyone struggles to avoid breathing the gas, Caleb tries to tell Triss how to stop the release, but David cuts their connection to the comms. Caleb then decides to head inside to find Triss. Meanwhile, Peter sees that the vault is getting filled with the amnesia gas, so Triss convinces him to open the door. Even though he hesitates at first, he eventually opens it and lets them in, after which he walks out, with 4 saying he'll find him later. Just then, Triss tries to stop the gas release with the controls.
Don't breathe in the gas!
But she realizes that it can't work. Luckily, Caleb enters right on time, and he tells her that she has to destroy an isolation valve in the building. With this, Triss uses the Bureau's advanced weapons to find the route to the valve. However, David appears through the surveillance virtual experience and tells Triss to stop trying because he'd never let her get to the valve. As he keeps locking the doors, Triss finds the wall leading to the valve and shoots it down. She then destroys the valve and stops the gas release. After she returns to meet the others, she thanks Caleb for helping, and he says it's what people do for family. Triss then says she'd like to send a message to David. As she heads out with the others, she tells everyone in the city about David's idea of separating the pure from the damaged. While the message continues, Caleb puts explosives in David's ship and sends it back toward the camouflage wall. While standing in front of the wall, Peter shouts for David to let him in before he's killed, but he gets no response. However, as Caleb's explosives take down the wall, Peter runs through. Meanwhile, Triss concludes her message by telling David that Chicago is their home and not his experiment. As she's then hugging 4, David appears behind them and looks angry because she has ruined his plans.